Yes, it was really an emotional appeal by President Zelenskyy to the European Parliament. He said, without the EU, Ukraine is alone, and he painted a picture of a country under attack, with innocent people being killed, including children. So he seemed to win over a lot of members of Parliament there with that standing ovation. Now they will be voting on these proposals today, including much tougher sanctions for Russia, against Russia, rather. There are calls for restrictions to be imposed on exports of oil and gas, and also for the financial system for all Russian banks to be completely cut off from Europe's financial system. The European Parliament calling for really tough measures. Also, the European Parliament President, speaking in her opening address, said that the European Parliament welcomes Ukraine's bid for its application for candidate status to the EU. So that's interesting. It's very much expected that this vote will go through in favour of Ukraine. Let's have a listen to President Zelenskyy. He really seems to have won quite a lot of hearts in the European Parliament today.
We have proven our strength. We have proven that, as at a minimum, we are exactly the same as you are. So do prove that you are with us. Do prove that you will not let us go. Do prove that you indeed are Europeans. And then life will win over death, and light will win over darkness.
Rebecca, Ukraine has officially applied to join the EU. Will the EU accept them?
This is going to be a long, complex process. It's believed. EU officials say it can take years to actually achieve membership of the EU, which is something we've seen in the past. So how quickly this process can go through is really another matter in itself. But Ukraine has applied it has signed that application. And this is going to be this is being discussed as well. But it is that long process, and of course, at the end of the day, it's EU member states that will have to decide upon that. And all 27 member states would have to agree. So we have seen some support from some countries, notably Poland, for example. It's voiced its support for Ukraine joining the EU. Also, Czech Republic and Slovakia are among those voices supporting Ukraine's appeal for membership of the EU. But others have said that this isn't really the right time to be having that discussion, and that perhaps Ukraine needs more immediate assistance in this kind of situation where that process isn't going to be fast at all. And of course, Ukraine also has to meet the criteria, and that could involve changing its democratic norms, introducing more corruption curbs. Those aren't going to be just brushed aside. So this is certainly not something that can happen overnight.
Let's just put the EU on one side for a moment and talk about NATO, because lawmakers in Finland are debating a petition calling for the country to join the NATO alliance, something that President Putin says will be met with serious military consequences.
This is a really interesting development. Of course, we have to remember that Finland shares a border with Russia. Now, a few weeks ago, would we have seen Finland, lawmakers in Finland meeting to discuss potentially applying to join NATO? It seems unlikely, but given the situation where we've seen what's happened with Ukraine is not a member of NATO, and that means it's not covered by Article 5, and that's meant that that NATO hasn't been able to send troops directly into Ukraine at all. It hasn't put any troops there, and it has no intention of sending troops into the country because it's just not a member. So now Finland is looking very closely at this process and whether it should apply. We don't know yet whether it will ultimately decide to do that, but it's certainly looking at that very closely. And certainly, from what NATO officials are saying, this crisis has only really served to strengthen the alliance. And Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, continues to condemn Russia's attack on Ukraine, of course, and is also saying that it will continue to defend its allies, which is what it's doing at the moment by sending more troops into the Eastern Alliance. Let's have a listen to Mr. Stoltenberg.
Putin has shattered peace in Europe. Allies condemn the unjustified and brutal invasion of Ukraine. The Russian assault is totally unacceptable, and it is enabled by Belarus.
So, yes, the situation is still, it remains that because Ukraine is not a member, NATO is not sending troops into Ukraine, but of course it is continuing to send troops into those surrounding areas where it has member countries.